picture this for a second. You've worked incredibly hard your whole life, right? You've built up your savings, maybe finally bought that house, and then the unthinkable happens. You pass away without a valid will in South Africa. Now, I know it's a super uncomfortable thought, but we have to ask the absolutely critical question, where does your estate actually go? Who decides who gets the house, the cash, the assets? Does the government just swoop in and take the whole shebang? Well, breathe a sigh of relief, because no, your life's work doesn't just vanish into thin air. Instead, your estate is handed over to a very mechanical, state-designed solution. We call this intestate succession. Basically, it's a specific set of legal default rules used to distribute your estate when you passed away without leaving a valid will behind. Think of it like a giant backup plan, completely written by the government. But, as you'll see in just a minute, the government's backup plan might not exactly match your personal plan. So welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are decoding South African intestate succession. I am so pumped to get into this with you because, let's be honest, inheritance law can sometimes feel like this dense, impenetrable forest of legal jargon. But today, we're taking a machete to it. We're going to clear the path, break down these complex legal concepts, and translate them into real, everyday scenarios so you can actually understand how your family's future could be impacted. All right, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The golden legal rule. 2. Spouses and children first. 3. The child share math. 4. When no immediate family survives. 5. Modern definitions of family. And finally, 6. The key statutes. Okay, starting off with Section 1, the golden legal rule, the foundation of inheritance. Okay, let's dive into this. The entire system of intestate succession is built on one massive underlying concept: the order of preference. See, the law, it really doesn't care who your favorite relative was or that you promised your vintage car to your cousin at a family braai. It completely relies on a super strict, totally unemotional formula to find a legal heir. So this formula is a strict hierarchy, and it's based purely on blood tissue, which lawyers call cognation, and legal marriage. The law basically divides your relatives into what are called parentellas, or orders of succession. Here is the golden rule in action. The law conducts this incredibly strict search for your closest living relatives. And the very moment it finds a closer relative, boom, those people inherit. As for everyone else further down the line, they get absolutely nothing. 0. Closer relatives completely exclude those further out. It is a highly rigid all-or-nothing system. Moving on to Section 2, spouses and children first, the first order of succession. So who is actually at the very top of that hierarchy? Let's break down the absolute most common, straightforward scenarios for an immediate family. If someone passes away and leaves only a spouse behind, no kids, that surviving spouse inherits the entire estate. Super simple. Now, what if only children survive and there's no spouse? Then the children inherit the entire estate and it's divided equally among them. But wait, what if one of those children passed away before the parent, leaving kids of their own? Well, the law uses this fancy Latin term called per stirpes. Don't let that intimidate you. It simply means by representation. Those grandchildren literally just step directly into their late parents' shoes to inherit their exact share. Next up, Section 3, the child's share math, when both spouses and children survive. Now, we're going to slow the pacing down just a little bit here because honestly, this is the scenario that causes the most confusion for folks. When you leave behind both a spouse and children, the law really wants to make sure the surviving spouse isn't just left destitute, right? So, the surviving spouse is legally guaranteed either a calculated child's share or a fixed statutory minimum amount, whichever of those two is greater. Today, that fixed statutory minimum is set at R250,000, meaning if the whole estate is worth less than R250,000, the spouse takes absolutely everything and the kids get nothing. But what if the estate is larger than that? So, the crucial point is how we actually calculate this child's share. Let's walk through the steps together. Step 1, you count the number of surviving children. Step 2, you add any deceased children who left descendants behind. Step 3, and this is the part people always forget, you add the number of surviving spouses to that tally. And finally, Step 4, you divide the total estate value by this combined number. The result you get? That is a single child's share. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how that math plays out in the real world. Let's say we have an estate worth 1 million rand. The deceased leaves behind 1 spouse and 3 children. To find the child's share, we take the 3 children plus the 1 spouse, giving us 4. We divide that 1 million rand estate by 4, which gets us our $250,000. Now, because this calculated share perfectly matches that statutory minimum we just talked about, the spouse gets their $250,000, and the remaining $750,000 is perfectly sliced 3 ways among the children, so they also get $250,000 each. It's a remarkably balanced equation once you actually see it mapped out like this.
All right, Section 4, when no immediate family survives. Looking upward to parents and siblings.
But what happens if the deceased was single, with no kids? If there's no spouse and no descendants, that strict hierarchy forces us to look upward. The estate now goes to the parents and siblings. If both parents are alive, it's easy, they just split the estate 50-50. If only one parent is alive, but there are brothers and sisters, the surviving parent gets half, and the siblings split that remaining half among themselves. And if both parents have unfortunately passed away, the estate is just split equally among the surviving siblings. Basically, the rules move rapidly up and across the family tree to find the next blood relative. Now, if there are no siblings or parents, it keeps looking to grandparents, aunts, uncles. But what about the absolute rarest case scenario? What if a massive, exhaustive search reveals literally 0 blood relatives? Well, the funds are paid into the Guardian's Fund, which is managed by the Master of the High Court. And there it sits, like a ticking countdown, for exactly 30 years. If no one claims it after 3 decades, the money officially forfeits to the state. So unless you really want the government to eventually adopt your hard-earned savings, that's a pretty strong incentive to have a plan in place, right? Section 5. Modern definitions of family, adapting to constitutional rights. Look, families today don't always look like they did 50 years ago, and those rigid rules we just went through, they've had to evolve to reflect reality. The legal definition of a spouse has actually been significantly widened by the courts. You no longer need a formally registered Marriage Act certificate to be protected. Customary marriages, as well as Muslim and Hindu religious marriages, are fully recognized under the Intestate Succession Act now. Plus, thanks to some groundbreaking constitutional rulings, like the Buanya versus Master of the High Court case, surviving partners in permanent life partnerships, whether heterosexual or same-sex, who have undertaken reciprocal duties of support, they can also inherit as spouses. It's a massive shift. And what's really interesting is how the law views descendants. When we look at biological children on the one hand, compared to adopted or extramarital children on the other, the law makes absolutely 0 distinction, none. Adopted children inherit from their adoptive parents exactly the same way a biological child would. Children born outside of a formal marriage, they inherit the exact same share from both parents. Total equality is literally hardwired into this part of the legal structure. Let's move to Section 6 and see how this all builds together. The key statutes, the legal engine. If you're a focused learner and you really want to dig deeper into the source material, here is the legal engine running everything we've just covered. First, you've got the Intestate Succession Act 81 of 1987. This is the primary engine for default distribution that we've been decoding today. Second is the Customary Law of Succession Act 11 of 2009. This one is vital because it aligns customary rules with the Constitution, making sure widows and daughters aren't excluded by outdated traditions. And finally, the Administration of Estates Act 66 of 1965. This dictates the strict, practical rules the executor has to follow via the master's office to actually wind down the estate. So those are your 3 main rulebooks. So we've explored the rigid hierarchy, the careful math, and the modern adaptations of intestate succession. But all of this leaves us with one incredibly provocative final question. Do the state's default rules actually match your personal wishes? Think about it. If your estate was divided exactly as we just mapped out today, would the right people actually be taken care of in the way you intended? It's a really powerful thought to leave you with, and honestly, an excellent reason to make sure you take control of your own legacy. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and stay focused.